No, I've heard those have been interesting.
We almost get turned into every time somebody says something funny. Drink your hot cocoa.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I took a page from Reagan in terms of trust but verify. So.
Yeah. Well, no.
It's all win.
Anybody else need one? Okay.
What do you have? Where is he now?
I told you. Anybody else need an agenda? Oh.
Excuse me. And still remember. You know, like 7. On the first trip.
Last Saturday just ruined it. Yeah, I know. Just don't.
This is the time of year.
That's why everybody goes out. I just need some. Yeah.
What can you?
I went down there. And I was north.
like to call to order the Milan Township Planning Commission meeting for March 8th, 2022. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rebecca, Bob, Matt, John, and Karen. I've handed out the meeting minutes from February 15th. They were also on the township website. Any additions or corrections? A motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 15th. All in favor? Aye. Okay, correspondence. I've had a number of emails from various people in the township over the past couple of weeks. Regarding this topic. Bring suggestions. So, otherwise, which we will consider all of them. So anyway, otherwise, I haven't had any other correspondence. Bob, have you reported anything from the township board?
Not that I know of. Not really anything happening super important.
Okay. Nothing happening at the board.
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty later.
Okay. Okay. Tonight, we are going to conduct the proceedings as follows. We'll have public comment, 2 minutes per person. We will not be answering. You can make a comment, you can ask questions, but we are not going to respond to questions. We will note your questions, and we will pick them up at a later meeting or whatever. There'll be a time later that we can answer your questions. But at this time, comment or question, we'll mark them down and we'll move on. And each person gets 2 minutes. And that doesn't mean you get another 2 minutes later on after other people have talked. 2 minutes per person in the public comment. There will be another public comment at the end of the meeting. So if you still have something you want to say, you can still say it at that time. So that's how we're going to handle the public comment. What we're going to do is go through the ordinance, the solar ordinance. This meeting here is to basically go through the ordinance with the proposed amendments that have been suggested. We on the planning commission are going to discuss them and decide whether we can agree with it, whether it's a reasonable proposal or what. And then the ones that we decide that are should move forward for further consideration, we will be having a public hearing. We will decide at the end of the meeting whether we're going to have our April meeting with a public hearing or not, but most likely it will. We'll have a public hearing, the official public hearing for the ordinance revisions in April. And at that time, we will have put each amendment in proper wording. So in other words, we're not going to try to do all the nuances of wording the amendments tonight. This is more of just a general discussion among the commission here to decide whether what should move forward and what should basically have additional follow-up or inquiry or whatever. And then in April at the public hearing, again, we will entertain additional amendments if more are presented, you know, but the ones that we move forward with, we will put into proper language, proper sentence structure, or whatever meaning, so that we can make a motion for each one to put it into the ordinance, as you know, with the proper wording. So I would like to open up courtesy of the township board. We have a 2-minute timer. So Pat, you don't have to worry about your phone. So who would like to make some comments or whatever? We'll get started. None? Okay, great. We'll move-
One second. Don't turn that on yet.
Well, it's,
Okay. Oops, I'm trying to find it. Do you have my copy of what I sent you?
Yes.
Could I have that for a second? And then I'll just read that and then I'll be done.
okay.
Is that what you submitted last week, everyone?
No, this a week ago. Oops, sorry.
I think I put it in the.
Oh, the circular?
No, it's in my solar file,
Okay.
right on top, in fact.
Oh, good. That's what I want. I know
See,
you
it's right on
responded.
top.
You responded to it. So go ahead. So first thing I want to do is just thank everybody that's on the board for the effort that they're doing on this solar.
Thank you.
ordinance. I feel like the glare needs to be a big issue on this project. Concrete in the holes of the structure is not allowed, because that will contaminate. That needs to be addressed. It'll destroy the ag ground. It will destroy the tile, causing flooding. We don't know the houses around there, how good the tiles is. Decommissioning, you know, that will be going up if you have to address all this. We haven't seen decommissioning ever. So I need a berm that's 4 to 5 feet tall. Visual sight of the project is not pleasing to the eye. If you go and look at one of these solar fields, it's not pleasing to the eye. Decrease in the house value. We need a project, if this goes through, it needs to be hidden. Topsoil does not get moved at all. No grading, no pushing the topsoil. So this is what I collected this month. I would like to stress that the community is not happy about the solar project. Maybe you might need to ride around our township and stop in at these homes and just talk to the residents and see what they can explain their concerns. I know we have meetings and I know there's, everybody works different hours. Just a reminder, the township and planning commission boards are working for the whole township, not for a few residents, okay? And especially not for the applicant. All right, so sincerely, your rural and farmland neighbor, me. Thank you.
So that's fine.
Okay, well, hey, I feel like, I don't know, what can we talk about? Decommissioning, consolidating, we need to consolidate it, we need to put in industrial, we need 5 to 7 acres, that's if we need it at all. We need to look, I don't even know what kind of studies you guys got going. Is there anybody that can oversee you guys, as in somebody that's more, I don't know, not knowledgeable, but qualified or, yeah, just
Experience with.
yeah, just so that you have questions, you can ask somebody and say, no, this is the way it should go. Who is our lawyer? Oh, that's right. What else do I have to say? You guys know how I feel about this. I'm done.
And so is the same.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
I believe from going to these meetings and listening to other communities that have this issue already, and listening to what they're saying and telling us to stay clear,
Yeah.
should send a big message to you people at the table. I mean, I know this gentleman was at the meeting last night when we had some gentlemen there from Augusta Township. And you guys, I think, have heard some people from Erie Township that were here. I believe this project is too big for small town government. I don't think anybody, maybe 1% in this room has handled the project in this hellacious money scheme of things. And you have to remember that this developer is not building a home for you, me, he's not putting a pole barn up for you or me. His responsibilities do not lie in the township or the landowner or the neighbors. His responsibilities lie in his investors only. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Well then,
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to know, is it too late to send in suggestions for proposed amendment changes? We keep sending them in.
Yes.
Okay, right.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to, let you guys know, like, I know you were at that meeting yesterday in Milan Township, but I didn't see the rest of you all there. And I also didn't see a lot of people that are on the actual board there. And, I know it's on Facebook because they recorded it and you can see the recordings, like you can go back and watch past meetings. And, just, there was 3 or 4 people from Augusta Township. They've already been through this, they've already done it, they had like a big warning for you guys, because they got themselves in hot water doing this. And I just feel like, the more you know, the better prepared you are, and like, you see warning signs all over the place, I think that's like stop and roll. So if you want to, it should be on Milan Township's Facebook page, that's where they put their meetings, and it was actually, they had some really good comments I think would benefit, actually both the planning and the board. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Kelly Fuller. I'm a township resident. I just want to give my statement that I'm against this. My property is going to be completely surrounded by solar panels if this goes through. And I get that landowners have a right to do what they want with their land, but this is going to affect our whole town for the next 25 to 30 years. So I feel like we should all have a say in this. It shouldn't just be a couple of, or a handful of people. I have concerns. I have a pond that's like an ecosystem. Like I'm just.
Put it on the other one.
Feel like everybody should have more notice about this. Doing it during a pandemic, that may not have been such a great idea. There wasn't notices sent out until after. So I'm opposed to it. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Sorry, Kelly, I didn't hear where you live. What?
In
I
township.
live on Cone Road,
Oh,
16701.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Mary Hannah. I'm a resident of London Township, and I was at the meeting last night. And I just briefly looked through the draft ordinance here, and it pretty much looks the same as the London Township proposed ordinance. And one of my few of my comments last night were that it doesn't really incorporate by reference the state and federal regulations that would be protective of the environment. And some of the things I was looking at today, and we have very high groundwater tables here, and they've been doing a lot of county drain repairs. And I saw a lot of photos of ponding and changes in the hydrology due to the solar panel installations. You know, when you have a farmland and it rains, yes, we're gonna have runoff, but as the crops are growing, you're gonna get less runoff. And we all have seen the flooding in the area when we have a really high rain event, especially, you know, when the ground is partially frozen. And I can just see that we're gonna have a lot of runoff, not only during construction, but during operation of the facility. It changes the hydrology. You're gonna get a lot more runoff. You're gonna get a lot more sediment in these small drains and creeks. And I think that you have to really take a good hard look at how the ordinance is worded so that you get protection and you have some recourse if the project does do harm to the area, if the project does go through indeed. One thing I was thinking of is that you could put in there that because these people are developing the land for the solar project. Once they develop it, they will be selling it to a local utility. And those local utilities are stretched thinner and thinner as far as their environmental staff. So there's not gonna be a whole lot of oversight. Even when you call the county stormwater inspector, they are so busy that you have to sometimes make an appointment with them weeks in advance for them to come out. So if you have an emergency going on with flooding or you get a lot of sediment coming out of this solar energy plant, I think you're gonna do a lot more damage to the environment than what you anticipate. And I guess I should have prefaced this with, I'm a retired environmental engineer. I used to be a stormwater inspector and planner. So I think that these are the things that the ordinance doesn't currently take into consideration, such as, and when the project gets sold, any of the agreements that are made during the development should be in perpetuity so that whoever buys this project and runs this project is bound by the same conditions. A lot of times developers will develop a project, not just, you know, solar, but any project. When it gets sold, the other people are not legally bound by the conditions. So there's some improvements that could be made if you want indeed to pass this ordinance.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I'm Matthew Spence. I'm from Augusta Township. I have property as well in York Township where they have, in Augusta Township, already have approved a solar electrical facility coming in on light industrial land. They recently wanted to also, just like here, have it approved on agriculture land. And it connects with the one into York Township. Together, that was almost 2,000 acres. The Augusta Township has just at their planning commission denied moving forward with their special land use permit. The scope of this, just so you know, the scale, most of these projects, they have to have just about 2,000 acres to make them viable, pretty much generally. But particularly this one they're talking about was 400 acres, this section. In that 400 acres, there's 400,000 solar panels, 65,000 pylons, 4 miles of fencing, and untold miles of cable and wires that go under the ground. They have the same policy or the same ordinance that you guys have virtually. We were able to add things as well onto the end of that for some special consideration or things they negotiated that hadn't been thought about on the ordinance, even though it was not changed the ordinance. But one of the major, a couple ones was that the plan was, as far as decommissioning, that they were going to plan to take out the pilings and the stuff above ground and leave everything else in the ground. So that definitely needed to be addressed because drainage was quite an issue. The drains themselves were an issue. It made it that they added into something that they had to have them all scanned and make sure they're working before. Flooding is a major concern, that you're piling these things in and they're not going to be in cement, they just pile drive from that. What happens. So they're driven into the ground And the whole area is surrounded there, like probably this ordinance, by a 7-foot tall chain link fence with barbed wire on the top. It has, it's setback initially up there at least of 75 feet. For the participating people, they've worked out of this, I think it was like 500 feet for the ones that weren't participating, which was a big concession that they provided. The idea that it's going to be is a 20-year plan and these are gone is a fantasy. What's going to happen, you got the solar company coming in, they're constructing this, they are going to sell it then to a utility company. And they have an agreement that probably none of us are aware, but they've actually been dealing with the farmers here for some time. Years back, this started before it got here. They already have agreements to purchase the property or to sell the property. So the majority of the farmers will be selling their property to the utility company. They will be making, up there with 120 megawatts that produced power for almost 25,000 homes. It was going to generate just in the 20 years over $2 billion. And they are investing $120 million to start with and providing upkeep the whole time. And it is unlikely, and they already have agreements with the farmers that they can extend it another 20 years, but they'll be fully functional the whole time along. There's no plan to take these down, although they'll come up with a demolition plan. It's not going to happen. Once they get in here, they're here to stay unless till power comes in free. So just, this is not little 20 years and they're out, or it's going to be reused for farmland. And that's going to happen. You're going to have one major landowner instead of major one you got here now. You're going to have competition that'll be with DTE. And this is happening up there in every one of these blocks. It's disingenuous to look at just your 400-acre piece. You got a piece over there. I can guarantee you, I don't know how big those are, but if you're not coming up with 2,000 acres or close to it, that is the plan to make it viable for any one of these things to do. And in your townships, you got more all around here that the same thing is happening. Up there, particularly in Augusta, it would be a big benefit to talk to some of the people on the planning commission or on the board. What things have you added? What things could you see that could benefit? And one of the main concerns is home values. And these guys will have the same study that they showed us up there. No, it's not going to affect your home value. Well, I actually buy and sell homes. So, and I know and my home was going to be affected surrounded by solar panels. This is going to have an impact on your home value. And if that's the case and it's not, then somebody should put their money where their mouth is.
Okay.
And guarantee it.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Kozer, I live over on South Platte. I just encourage you guys as stewards of the township residents to make sure that the ordinance is thought out for the residents and to protect the township for what we have always wanted our township to be. This township has always been rural. I've lived in Milan my entire life. I actually lived in London Township for 4 years. And I'd be having the same fight with them if I was still there. I really urge you guys to look at our master plan, make sure that this ordinance is aligned with it. We can't be benefiting just a few families within the community. We have to look at it as a whole. There's certain things I can't do on my land and I don't have very much, but I have to come to you guys to make sure that I'm following the ordinance that were set to be able to do things with my property. So I just urge you guys to listen to the residents, really make this ordinance, which I think we need an ordinance to make sure that predatory people don't come in and try to take over our land, take over our township and make it into something that we don't want. So I just really urge you to listen to what your township is saying. And I feel very loud and clear. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Takey. I am a resident of London Township. I've actually never even stepped foot in this building until tonight.
Welcome.
So I sit here and I'm looking at that zoning map and I am seeing all of that dark green, that prime agriculture. That is what I love about my township. I love looking at the corn and the soybeans and seeing the deer and all of the different animals, even the coyotes, as long as they stay away. They're nice from far away, but that's what we live out here for. That's what most people moved out here for. I don't have a stake in this game. I don't have the farmland that the solar people are gonna come after to want to put panels on. I am nowhere near where these panels are gonna be. I know that there are people in this audience or in this township as a whole that are gonna want to benefit from these panels. I get that. I understand them wanting that financial stability. But I also understand there are people that don't want to look at it when they look out their window next door, or their front window, or their back window, because that's not what they moved out here for. I understand you are just a recommending board. You are getting paid peanuts for a thankless job. You are, I don't know exactly what goes on at these meetings, but I know what happens at London meetings and how people get yelled at and screamed at. And from what I've seen, it's been very civil here, and I'm very happy to see that. But you gotta listen to your residents. You have to, because if you don't, then you shouldn't be sitting in those seats. If you don't feel that you can do the best for your residents as a whole, then you should resign. And I would tell that to anybody. You are appointed, you're not elected, but you were appointed by the people that were elected by your Milan Township residents. And that's who your constituents, that's who you need to listen to. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Sorry, I didn't put this. So when we moved out here 30 years ago, it was for the community. We like the community, we like the farming atmosphere, we like all of the wildlife that's out here. I think if there's gonna be a strong vacating of all the wildlife, if we let the solar company come in, the wildlife is gonna leave, the birds, the migratory birds are gonna leave. We're not gonna see what we moved out here for. What we're gonna see is increased traffic. We're gonna see our roads decrease in the stability of our roads out here. These dirt roads are horrid. And we are not gonna benefit from this. This is for what we moved out here for, and that's what I heard last night too. Everybody said they moved to the country for a reason, and it wasn't to see solar panels. It was for the landscape, it was for the farming community, it was to see crops, it was to see the fields, it was to see all of the wildlife out here. But, you know, I hate to see it change now, and I hope that you take that into consideration with visiting with the other communities, not just ours.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't. Cheryl Majors. Oh, thank you. Did you get my email?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, very good. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Tracy, and I just have a quick question, and I haven't thought it, it's gonna seem a little bit clunky, but the commission's a recommending board. But is it a recommending board, or is it just a board that hears the voices of the people, writes the ordinances, the concerns down, and then passes it on to the board? Or are you at some point going to say yay or nay on this? And then a follow-up question would be, because as I understand it, the commission is just simply saying, what does everybody want, or how does people envision this? We're gonna write down these ideas, codify them, and then we pass, or neutral, we pass it to the board, and the board gets to decide. So I guess one of my thoughts is, if everybody is expressing how they feel, could the township have a vote? I mean, could the board have a vote? Like a
survey?
Not a survey, like, you know how they do in California where they'll have like a little vote
Proposition.
proposition type of thing? Because then, you know, people could turn out and voice their opinions, but I mean, I guess my question, and you don't have to answer this because sometimes comes down to the commission is just simply codifying the concerns of the people. And everything then and all those codifying of the ideas of the residences then goes to the board, and the board votes, right? Or am I wrong?
Well, I can't answer your question at this time.
Okay, that's fine, but I mean, the point that I'm just trying to say is that I went to the last board meeting, and it seems like a lot of people here are expressing I like it, I don't like it. And what the real context is should be, I don't like it, but let's put all these conditions on it. You know, instead of just saying, I don't like it, I like it. It just seems kind of like we need more of a concrete. Yes, we want only, I don't know, 6-foot fences and no barbed wire, done. You know? So I don't think the commission votes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I kind of have two basic trains of thought on this whole thing. If I look back, I see a history of failure of infrastructure in this country. And it doesn't matter what it is. Utility companies probably being the biggest offenders. Because they get these projects, they're paid for by the taxpayers. Then they collect money from the taxpayers for the very thing they paid to bill. This is kind of redundant and ridiculous to me at the same time. These companies reap all these profits, them and their shareholders. And I look to the future and I see this quote unquote green world. And I can't help with these solar panel ideas, but envision cities surrounded by miles of solar panels. Okay, because that's what these cities are gonna need. Not got a couple acres here and there to run in Detroit or Ann Arbor. It's gonna take miles. That's insane, folks. What are we gonna do to our planet? Is this the way we're gonna do it? Cover it with panels like concrete? Think about what we're doing. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Okay.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
I'm Nick Straub from Dennison Road. I don't know, I know I can't ask any questions.
We can ask, but we won't answer.
Okay. Well, what I'm hearing yesterday in Milan Township and today here is maybe this board or commission should have a workshop regarding this proposed ordinance and have that with Augusta Township. I'm sure they would be happy to sit down and have a workshop. And they could tell you guys, ooh, that was not good for us, don't do this, or whatever. Maybe it's Augusta, maybe it's another township that's already got one in. And you know, where you could reap the benefit of looking at hindsight and saying, this is what happened there. Let's don't make 75-foot buffer, let's make it 200-foot buffer. Let's make sure they put some kind of drainage systems in to get rid of the water so we don't have mosquitoes that are gonna carry us away and we can't cook outside. Because if they go through and ruin all the field tile, I mean, you guys are smart people, you're farmers, it's not gonna drain. And if they don't put in a new draining system, we're gonna have a big problem. And I think that's a bigger problem in this community than what you really see, because the ditches in this community are not the greatest. They go over full all the time. And if we're gonna have fields that are not gonna drain, the ditches aren't taking it out of here, where's it gonna go? So that might just be one piece of the puzzle. You know, you gotta have this kind of buffer. You can't put in 2-foot trees because by the time they grow and do any kind of buffer, I'm probably gonna be, in a nursing home or something. I don't know. It's a long time down the road. So, maybe you should plant 8-foot trees. Maybe you should plant 15-foot trees. Maybe 20-foot trees, because if they're gonna put 20-foot panels in here and you put a 2-foot bush in, obviously it ain't gonna do much for a long time. I planted trees in my yard right over here 20 years ago. Now I got trees. But I planted 6 to 7-foot trees, 8-foot trees. So, yeah, 150 in one day, matter of fact. But anyway, I think it will be very beneficial, not just to listen to, the people here. Obviously, we got to listen to people here, but you got to listen to the people who've been through it and some experts. I think somebody said, could you call somebody in? Call an expert in this arena. It might not be a Michigan person because we don't have solar panels. It might be New Mexico. It might be who knows where, but maybe we should call in somebody. So that's all good, bad, or indifferent. I think from what I'm hearing that this board needs to sit and listen to somebody who's went through this and just to see what they say. If you don't like what they say, fine. But at least you'll get some information.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Oh, my name is Jesse Carpenter. I just have a couple points. With these solar ordinances, the solar ordinance was basically written by the solar company and brought to Milan Township, to London Township, to York Township. It's the same ordinance for basically all of us. So what we've run into in Augusta is they have made some concessions. But the problem is, once you open up this A1, A2 ag property to these guys, they will assure you that they don't want any more property. This is the project on the table. This is all we want to discuss. But in hindsight, we allowed them what they call rail splitter 1, which was on light industrial property, which everybody was fine with because it's basically unusable ground. And then as soon as that one went through, they immediately went to rail splitter 2, which is another 400 and some acres that they need to make that first one viable. And then our township needs to tie in with York Township to make this conglomerate work. So what we found is they will make some concessions, but you need to really watch what you allow because they will make concessions, but like it's been brought up here before, are those concessions sold with the project or do they end at that point? So just something to think about. The other thing that we found is the original number that we were told was like $5.5 million. But when you break it all down, the 5.5 to Augusta Township wound up being 24,000 total. And that was just for the first year. And then there's a lot of discussion about how much of this ag property will be turned into PA 116 ground. And then they won't pay even ag tax on it. It will wind up being somewhat less. And then they will tell you that they're going to pay on all the personal property, the solar panels and everything else. But that whopping $24,000 winds up dwindling. So you really need to do your research and try to figure out what is it going to do for your township? How is it going to benefit you? It sounds great in the beginning, but if you really start to whittle on the school systems that it goes to, the other townships that it goes to, it gets dispersed in a lot of different areas. So it's just, there's a lot of concerns. We've gone through, I don't know, probably pushing 2 years of being opposed to this. And that's why we're here tonight. Just none of us wanted to come tonight, but it's very near to our hearts to where it was going to surround a couple of us on all 4 sides. And whereas they will produce any studies you want to hear. If you want glare studies, they've got them. If you want noise studies, they've got them. If you want property value studies, they've got them. But those studies were all done by the solar company. And basically, they will promise you the world, but something like that.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Yes, sir.
Richard Hamill, Augusta Township also. Not quite sure where you, again, like coming into it now. One thing that we have been communicating is with what they've already allowed, with what they've already proposed, with what's already been approved. We are just as adamant and just as vehement with the fact that there needs to be a moratorium. If you've already opened the door and you've allowed so much, you've got to cap it, you've got to stop it, you've got to not let it go any further. Because as we've seen, we've been to Shiawassee Township. Shiawassee, that is an incredible 3,000 acres that is just desecrated the area. It's incredible what it's done. And it's just, I'm from the city. They're not city blocks, they're country blocks, which are what, a mile. And it's just solar panels and solar panels. I was driving it and I FaceTimed Jesse and I said, this is what we're looking at. They did not do their homework on the setbacks. They had 3-foot trees that were half dead, blowing over, and the project was still in huge development. So again, like I said last night, I would implore you to educate yourself. And if so much of this has already gone through, stop where it's at and don't let it go any further, because it will.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the main item of our agenda. I'd like to make a couple comments. Some of you. This currently, the Planning Commission is a commission that makes ordinances for the township. Ordinances that are to protect the township from manage the township under various conditions and rules. As needs arrive, we modify the ordinances, as new information comes up. If new projects, present themselves and we feel that there's a need to amend our ordinances or create new ones, we do. We've done that numerous times in the past, and this is no different. When the developer came to us and said that they were starting to make inquiries and talk to people, we realized that we needed an ordinance, a solar ordinance to protect the township. Because without an ordinance, then it leaves us wide open for be knocked around. So we created an ordinance. We looked at other township ordinances, and we came up with one that we thought was reasonable, with the full knowledge at the time that we could make amendments to it as new information came and so forth. So this board, like I said, generates ordinances for the township. Then we make a recommendation to the township board to pass, to adopt the ordinance. We do not adopt it, we just make a recommendation. The township board is the approving body that actually passes and approves the ordinance. They also approve the special use approval for projects like this. We provide input and we try to do all the homework that is necessary beforehand so that the township board has all the information that they need to be able to make a informed decision. One of the things that this ordinance does, as well as other our general ordinances allow us to do, including the site plan process, is to bring in outside independent experts, conservation people, soil people, tie-up people, experts, professional planners. We currently have a bidding process out for to hire a professional planner, one who will have experience with solar projects, so that we will have professional help and advice. So, and all of this is in order for us to do our due diligence. And yes, we do, hear what you are saying, and there are some items that we can try to mitigate and make, conditions, that will protect the township, protect the property, and however, there are other considerations that is beyond the scope or not applicable for a zoning ordinance. And so it's, and one of those items is, for example, property values. Property values, you cannot write a conditions in a zoning ordinance that says to protect property values.
Sure you can.
Yeah, you can.
Sure you can.
You can't. So, but
This is why we need people above you guys too.
that's why, like I said, that's why we have lawyers, and that's why we'll have experts that will be able to advise us, as well as, which includes correct us if we do have inconsistent ideas. Yeah, so we're not,
Do we know who your experts are?
not yet. They have not hired it yet. They have not, there's a bidding process in.
Non-biased, sure, right.
Well, there's a bidding, they put out for bid, a request for planners, a professional planner, who has, experience with solar projects. And not an independent professional planner, not associated with any developer or anything like that.
Okay, and then we will know who that is.
Of course, once they hire, they have not received the applications yet.
So we'll know when you hire them, we don't get a chance to look at it, or?
No, that's up to the township board.
Okay.
It's their prerogative to hire whoever they
I
decide.
just want to know who.
And I mean, they will inform you who it is and what their qualifications are. So, but, no, you do not get a vote on.
I didn't say no.
So you have that, and what else did you say that you're partnering? We're looking at.
No, we have lawyers, and we will be requesting help from MSU extent, ag extension, from soil conservation people, whoever we can provide us with expert opinions and information. We will avail ourselves of their expertise, because we are basically like you guys. We're not professionals,
Exactly.
and so we need all the help we can get.
Know where the buck stops.
Well, the buck stops with the township board, but
Exactly.
like I said, our responsibility is to in crafting these ordinances and amending them, and to obtain as much input and expertise as we can to make the recommendations. And then once now most of these experts will be brought on board when we go through the site plan. If and when the developer, see, right now, nothing has happened, except that the developer has talked to people and started leasing property. They haven't done anything with the township, except that we know what they're doing. And so, but the clock or the ball gets shifted to us once the developer makes a site plan application and a special use approval application.
Mhm.
At that point, then they will have officially declared what their intentions are. Because right now, there's a lot of speculation on what their intentions are. We pretty much know, but we don't know exactly all the details, and so the site, and then, so once the site plan application has been submitted, at that point, we will be talking, like I said, bringing on board all the different experts as necessary. And yes, we will be inquiring with other people who've had experience with projects like this, possibly, Augusta people, I mean, it's. we have- So,
It's the same thing.
so,
You have a lawyer and a planner.
Commentary.
excuse me, no, we're not taking comments, so. So, anyway, so yes, so that is, but right now we're at the ordinance model. We are at the ordinance adoption and modification stage. And that's where we're at this time. Right now, there is a moratorium. The township board passed a moratorium that basically said that for 6 months, they would not be accepting any site plan applications, which I believe that runs until July. So that's where we're at. Now, like I said, we will be going through the amendments and deciding which ones are going to move forward. And we'll have a public hearing next, you have the official public hearing for the amendment process next in April. We could have it continue that into May if necessary. In other words, it just doesn't have to be just one meeting, it can be more than one meeting. And before we make a recommendation to the board for adoption of the amendments. So that's where we're at. So. Yes. Rebecca.
So I guess, so I get the intention of hiring a planner. If that is for only specifically to deal with the site plan, what's the thought process on having that individual only evaluating the site plan? Is that?
Well,
is
he's
that
gonna
kind of-
be on board to do
Or
it.
she, or she.
Or she, I'm sorry. The person that is hired, the person that is hired will be at our discretion to work on site plans, special use approval, master plan, whatever.
Wait, is it the board or is it you that hires the person?
Sorry. The township board will be hiring the planner, and he'll be working with us to do whatever we need to have done. Or advice.
So I guess then I'd like to go back to the timeline that you outlined earlier of, us going through all of these and everything is fine. But I kind of would like to do it under the guidance to Nick's point and some other points here, that of a planner being here. I just don't want to double up work. I mean, not that I mind working, but I just don't want to double up work if we're gonna then get, if we go down a path that is, to your point, you and I sort of disagree on the part about property values and things, because there is something that you can put in an ordinance with community benefits and other things. So I just would like to have a professional either telling me that I'm off base or not off base before we put a recommendation to the board.
I totally agree.
So, but I guess then maybe could we outline a calendar, not just for our purposes, but for everybody else's purposes to kind of have, because the calendar that you outlined, and correct me if I'm wrong, was for us to start going through the changes tonight and then start incorporating the changes with a public hearing next month, or for clarification purposes.
Tonight, I was going to start by trying to triage and discussing between us some of these proposals and sort of saying, okay, deciding, okay, how do we want to look at the different amendments and whether we think they're reasonable, and should they move forward. Then in April, what I wanted to do is declare that as a public hearing, which could be the first of numerous public hearings. I mean, public hearing doesn't have to be just one day, one meeting. We can carry it over to a second meeting and so forth. And that and for April, the planner may be on board for April, or he may not be. I'm not exactly sure, but but for sure, I do not anticipate making any recommendations to the board in April. That's not my intent. Okay. I think that there's going to be enough discussion and that it's going to carry over to May. And then and he will be definitely on board in April, maybe not in time for our meeting, but shortly during the month of April. And at that point, we can get him up to speed. And for May, everything could be reviewed.
And by everything, you mean the ordinance, our proposed changes to the ordinance,
Yeah.
or just the ordinance?
Oh, the proposed changes.
Okay, I just want to check and make sure so that we're all on the same page.
And even if May proves to be inadequate, we can go to June. I mean, or we can have more meetings. We can have additional meetings during the month, as we deem appropriate.
Sorry, I just wanted to.
Rebecca, can I ask maybe a point of clarification? Were you kind of suggesting, because I think this is where my train of thought is, that this person should be a part of this process now, if not other experts?
I just want to, I think Nick and some others have made the points, I just, Nick's name, so sorry. But that I just want validation or affirmation as to, what we're doing. But I think if we go through some of it tonight, if we make it all the way through, because there's quite a bit, that maybe we put it into the category of further evaluation by the planner or attorney or both, or something along those lines. That would be helpful. But I just wanted to clarify, because the way that I was hearing it, thought we were on a little bit more of a rapid.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I may not have been totally clear. So sometimes I propose things with, and don't make it that I'm always very flexible.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're the engineer, I'm the talker.
Okay. I gave you guys a deck that looked like this. Basically, what I did is I took our ordinance, and first column, I have our ordinance. The second column, I have proposed amendments from last time, and a few that came in before I typed this. And then the third column is comments. So, for example, the first request was, proposal was the vicinity of the. Yes.
Quick question. You had mentioned triaging these, and by that, I assume, maybe taking them in order of significance or importance, or even if real or perceived. Do we want to start going over these and discussing setbacks in feet or trees and height before we start talking about some of the bigger picture stuff first? There's some, I mean, some of the concerns that I reviewed this since our last meeting, you sent it to us, some of these are some pretty big picture things.
Right.
I mean, to me, it just kind of makes sense. If we-
Whatever order you want.
I don't have any particular order, it seems like, to me, it seems kind of, I mean, if we are in fact gonna discuss some of the concerns that were brought up regarding the master plan, overall zoning, that might come before we start talking about measures. Just a suggestion.
Okay, let's start, one of the, let's see. Okay, on the last page, page 12. There's other considerations not addressed in the ordinance. And one of them, like I said, conduct a property value study prior and have a remedy to compensate residents if negatively affected. Now, I don't really know how a zoning ordinance can do that. We can ask our lawyer whether, and our planner, whether there's any kind of history or applications or not applications, but language that has ever been used. That would, because apparently you feel that there has been.
Well, I don't necessarily know about this particular thing about a property value study. I think a remedy to.
Or property value remedy. Now, the question becomes, if property values go up, then do the people have to pay the, pay back the
Well, my
value
remedy,
of the increased value?
the remedy that,
If you don't wreck your car, does your insurance go down? Okay.
this is serious.
There's gotta be something we can look into this. There's a lot of people concerned with that.
Yes.
Sure, okay.
We need, like I say, we need to put on here, we need to contact the Laura Planning or a tax advisor on what certain instances we can do to make sure that the township isn't impacted negatively if this is brought in. We need to further investigate that.
I guess I was, if we're putting in the column of comments, I've done a little bit of research, and by research, it's Google searches, so they are very scientific. And there doesn't seem to be, there's a couple of different studies out there. And, we've talked to, of course, the solar company about some of the ones they've done and then some other ones as well. So I just wonder if it is something that we have a list of questions to submit to NSU and U of M. Those individuals, because Sarah Mills's main job is my understanding, is to assist townships and local municipalities with developing their ordinances. And so I know that she does quite a bit of work related to this type of issue. So if everyone else is agreeable to the question, and I think we should send her a list of questions, not just this one particular one, is to say, are there property value evaluations, not just suburban property or urban property, but rural property, because I think that's the difference. And
I've debated it with Brian of the study that was conducted by the company is that I think rural property, it tends to not turn over. If it's farmland, it's not going to lose its value, like a residential area and things like that. So, and then for Sarah and the other, or see if they have a catalog of community benefit plans. So if everyone remembers last time I brought this up at the end of, you look at the changes to the Ambassador Bridge in Detroit, and that was a big part of a big part of that project was writing into the ordinance and into the, I think it was the ordinance, some specific community benefits. And so just having an idea, and I think that, and since we're spending this time, I started to write down some potential ways that we could maybe survey the township, because my idea of community benefit may be totally different than yours, Pat, and my idea of the road on this end of Cone may be different than everybody on that end of Cone. So I think that, you know, so the question is there are this is really starting to become a huge public policy issue for these types of projects, is the development of community benefit overall, and how do we serve as good Americans and generating energy or being a part of it, but also that we're a part of not having everything. Now that this is on camera, I can't say go to shit, but. So I think there's a lot of amazing things that are happening and that really bring communities together, more so than focusing on a few individuals that are going to get something over some other individuals. So I have an idea, I have many ideas. I think that education, access to education is one way to combat property values issues. I think it also combats a lot of other things. I think that, you know, it's an energy issue. So is it a matter of providing certain energy costs or reductions to the entire township, not just a few people that are neighbors? You know, there's not a lot of people here, but I think that there's a lot of different things. I don't know what everybody's needs are or interests. Is it pave all the roads?
Go around the community and start with.
So I think that we should contemplate some kind of, with the planner, some kind of formal, you know, whether we mail it out to everybody or there's also, you know, you can't just randomly throw it out on Facebook, but you could. Actually, Facebook has surveys, but you can't confirm that they're township residents and all of that stuff. So I do think that there are ways to do that. So, so if we can maybe ask.
Yes, we can, I can
ask that question.
I can talk with Sarah Mears and we can pursue that, and I can.
And I think it's Michigan State though that does some of the community benefit stuff, Michigan State. And it's not, I don't think it's ag and extension. I think it's their public policy IPSers or. Again, another Google search.
Okay. Okay, we can pursue that. One of the other items was the PA 116 open space preservation program land should not be allowed for solar. That basically is already been decided that by the state of Michigan, that the 116 is the program is open to allowing farmers to participate with solar energy and solar panels on their land. That the MDARD has established rules and for how they will participate. Basically, the farmers have to make an application to participate in the solar program, and their participation in the PA 116 is then extended, or I should say, put on hold and extended after the solar operation is decommissioned, and they do not have to quit the program. PA 116 also has numerous requirements for the preservation of the land that is being used, and requires the farmer to, and the landowner to put the ground back into ag production. And so they have stringent requirements for that. And so and many, those items that they require are many of the same things that we want, such as, drainage and tile and productivity, consistency after the program is over. So the state of Michigan has basically said that PA 116 is not a hindrance to solar energy.
John, just to
Yes.
clarify, we, the township, could prohibit more than PA 116. Do we have that authority?
Do we give approval for PA 116?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No, that's between the state and the farmer.
County first.
Maybe, I think I'll put that in the category of ask the attorney. I think the couple of questions are, what are, if there were restrictions in an ordinance, so could there be restrictions? And I'm not saying this is where I'm going, I just have no idea if you're even allowed to. And then the other thing would be,
Could we, I mean, restriction about using a PA 116 for solar?
yeah, we can.
I mean, that's what they say. That's-
Yeah, like, can you do that? But I'm pretty sure you can. And then the other part is, but would there, in order to provide the landowner or the solar company to be, to be fair, is that, would there be some kind of mechanism for them to get out of PA 116? I think you can, you just have to pay back the taxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And while it's holding solar, they're not reaping the tax benefit.
Yes. Yeah, you're still PA 116.
No.
Oh, you don't get the credits.
No,
Oh, I read that.
Unless you do it under the table.
Oh yeah. Just something, because it just seems to keep coming up with the residents. I'm comfortable with it, but. And I think that there's also some state policy changes that are coming forward on this, because this is.
There may be policy changes that are coming forward, but unfortunately, it's sort of like waiting for Christmas.
Well, I know, but just to get an affirmation or from the attorney to see, it's a possibility we can't do it, I don't know. It seems to come up, and I think it's a question that's gonna be on the board's plate, so that there's a clear answer.
Needs to be a clear answer.
Yeah, and if it isn't clear, then Bob gets to go around the twist.
the master plan should be updated to address our intent with renewable energy. Currently, our master plan, which was updated in 2015, does not address renewable energy per se. It does say that we are a rural community, and we like to be a rural community. But in terms of renewable energy, it does not say, doesn't address it at all. So now, should we probably put a paragraph or a section in there on renewable energy? We could, and that's something we can decide to do in the near future. Just because it does not, address renewable energy, does not preclude us from using or having solar and renewable energy in the township. The rural character, I know has been alluded to, that solar panels not rural by their nature. On the other hand, if you have solar panels, you're not going to have any more people building houses either. So, and so you're going to stay countrified, so to speak.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's all in the eye of the beholder. That's something that, yes.
I don't, and this is kind of the big picture I was alluding to earlier. Before we start really digging in on this, I feel like myself and everybody, both for and against this. I mean, the way it stands now, this entire township is open to solar development theoretically, correct?
Sure.
I mean, we allow it in Ag 1, and I forget the details, but that's the one that seems to cause the most heartburn. I think there needs to be some kind, I mean, everything that's ever come before this commission in my 12 or 15 years on here, we've always had a place for it. We've always kind of had a spot for it. Some of the more heartburn causing issues like manufactured housing and things like that, we put them in a special spot. And I don't know that I'm necessarily calling for that at this time, but I would feel a lot better about digging into this proposed project, if I knew that like we weren't gonna have 5 more breathing down our neck next year. The more that the amount of knowledge that I've gained in the last 18 months, talking to all these townships, other counties, the people who visited us and the people that I visited, is I'm concerned about it growing and popping up all over the township. I don't know that I'm necessarily opposed to it per se. I'd like to dig into this and talk to a lot more experts and continue my education on this. But, I think we need to all be reassured that we're not going to be inundated with proposal after proposal and then have to defend ourselves. I don't know if there's some way that we can, I don't know that how agreeable I'd be to a particular zoning or areas specified for this, but I think we need to know that we can deal with this without having to worry about it growing on us.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
are you proposing that we take a look at the master plan officially?
I don't know if there's a technicality.
Well, it needs to be
as far as
updated on a regular basis. The question is, we get to pick when the basis is. Is that what you're proposing?
I don't know. I don't know if this can be handled in the ordinance, like overall, we are gonna limit it to so many acres, or we are gonna limit it to a certain area. I mean, everything that's ever come before us, we've kind of picked the area. And I don't know that I have any, again, not telling these people where, landowners what they can and can't do, but I feel like there needs to be kind of a hard stop to this at some point. And again,
I don't think anybody pro and against wants to see that dark green all covered in solar panels.
No, of course not.
And I know, but there's nothing, there's no stop, there's no safety valve, there's no.
Well, there's, unfortunately, there's no safety valve on any permitted use or legal use of land.
But everything that we have permitted and legal use in Ag 1 right now, we're okay with it. If everybody in Ag 1 right now wanted to build another farm, we would, but nobody in Ag 1 could build a McDonald's, nobody in Ag 1 could do this, this is the new thing, and I think it's significantly different. Now, again, I'm trying to shove this one necessarily off the cliff, but I think a lot of the concerns that I've heard is about expansion, about it broken up into pieces and the need for it to be consolidated and somewhat controlled, which is, I feel like, kind of our job.
Yes.
So I guess, could there be two aspects to that, to Bob's point of, do we want to propose reviewing the master plan and making some amendments? But then also, I think it was from Augusta or somewhere, that we could put in the ordinance, I don't want to say moratorium, but a maximum amount. That this would be, so you could take it from 2 levels and maximize capital.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But would that require opening up the master plan, or is that something?
the master, you have to realize the master plan is basically a future, a plan for the future. And it's has generalities, it doesn't restrict, it basically sets goals. And it's, so it's, it's not something that is going to, you can put, for example, like restrictions or whatever. You can say that we don't want this or we don't want that. We want to, remain rural or whatever. And ironically, with the state of Michigan basically saying that it's PA 116 land is viable for solar, it basically says that in their viewpoint, it's good for ag. Now, whether that's your opinion, you agree with that or not, that's what they basically told us in the declarations. So, yeah, but like I said, master plan is basically a look forward, future, and now in terms of saying, okay, we only want so much solar in the township or whatever. I don't know whether we can say that. Now, one of the limiting factors is how much capacity the substation has.
But that technology changes and there
I
can be new
understand that.
substations and new lines. I mean, the master plan, how far are we looking when we do this? I mean, we got a 5, 10, 20-year future.
Right, yes.
So again, I remember when Granholm was in office and we got all said we put in the TRO thing, and or we were told, the state of Michigan told us that was coming, and things change. I just, if these projects are 30 years plus 10 plus 10, and we're looking at 30 to 50 years, I think we need to think about how much of our township we want or are willing to see covered. And we need to write that down.
Okay. Yes.
I would like to recommend that we add another question for maybe getting, I think Sarah's opinion on this of what are some similar master plans or some master plan recommendations. Because I think to your point, John, is that the solar thing is here now and we need to address it and move forward with the current situation. But I think concurrently determine the long-term, I don't know, or see if there's some recommendations.
Okay. I can include that.
and then have a further discussion. I think it would be helpful to know from the board whether there's an interest in us evaluating the master plan. So maybe it could be a
Well,
board.
that's basically.
I don't, is it our purview or is it the board?
That's basically our purview. Bob, like you said, mentioned that on a periodic basis, we are supposed to update it, and it is coming up for that time. So it's not, but you know, we're sort of under this gun right now. So, yes, I will, I can talk to her about that. And also I can talk to her about whether there's, how we can limit the intensity. How much it's allowed in the township. We can talk to the lawyer as well.
Hey, John, I have a question.
Yes.
I think it shouldn't be something limited to one individual in the planning commission. I think if we have a meeting with Sarah, a question, we all should be here.
Okay.
All be on the same page. And come up with more questions than just from one individual. We all might have questions that would all be answered all at the same time. That way there'd be one environment, get it all done at one time instead of back and forth, back and forth.
Okay. How about if I can set up a workshop for later this month? And have her come in and we can talk to her about it. And the public will be invited, allowed, because it's a workshop. You know, what a workshop is basically an agenda where we talk about very specific things, which would have a very specific purpose. Nothing is voted on, no decisions are made. It's basically a working session, and the public is invited and can attend, but their input is not allowed. No, so
How would that be publicized?
on our website and in the paper. It's actually, a workshop does not have to be publicized.
I'm just asking.
No. Well, it does not have to be publicized, but we'll put it on the.
Yes, it does.
And you cannot, by the Open Meetings Act, you cannot tell the public they cannot make comments. It is a meeting of the board, by the Open Meetings Act, the public is allowed to make comments. You cannot tell the public that they cannot speak.
Well, maybe I'll look that up and for workshops, I'll look that up and confirm that.
I would
And yes, we,
definitely suggest that.
yes, we will put it on the website and we can publish it in the paper.
It doesn't have to be published. It's a special meeting. It just has to be
Posted.
posted 18 hours
18
before.
hours.
Right. Okay. Yes, it would be. On the door.
Sounds good. And on the website.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll call Sarah and see when she can be available. And by that time, we maybe even have the planner on board.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Yes. Oh, this is March. So. Let's see if, so the planner would not be available, but.
Well, the end of March may be difficult for her too. That's only 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks away. So, I mean.
No hurry.
Yeah, I don't think I don't feel like I'm in a hurry at
Right.
this, the fact that a month that we've got the moratorium that we're working with and, yeah. Because I think the schedule for her at the university is probably, that's like not ideal.
Correct, for Tuesdays, is not ideal for her.
Just that those, I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah, because that's why she couldn't be here last week. That's why. So. Okay. Verify that subsequent owners must adhere to agreements made by the developer. yes, that the agreements go with the project or the owner. They are transferable to the new owners or whoever buys the project. And so that's part of the special use approval, is that requirements and agreements are maintained by whoever buys it.
On that one, John, I just think that it keeps coming up. And I know, I feel pretty comfortable that by state law and by ordinance T, it may be worth just exploring some language that maybe clear, just provide some clarity and reassurances to people, so.
Well, that would be part of the special use approval contract. The special use approval that is a contract between the township and the developer, the owner of the project. And that would be part of the language of the contract.
I think that maybe the ordinance should have some additional language, but okay, it's for another day. Also, did we add description identifiers to other ordinances? Because I have a question mark. I didn't know.
Well, that means, for example, there's a reference to some of the other ordinances in the book, like glare and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it's referenced as a article number or whatever, and so that basically says, okay, explain it. And that, yes, that is something that I plan to expound on. I should say, clarify. Okay, and then finally, the detail of post-approval process for expansion or additional solar projects. Well, that's what we talked about that. So. Okay. Now, one of the things the amendments said that right now we have under height of on page 5, under height of solar panels. Our ordinance says ice components excluding substation transmission shall not exceed 20 feet at any time or location, and the suggestion that maximum height should be 12 feet, and I think that that is something that we could revise. 20 feet, I think, is rather excessive.
That's what I wanted to say. No, they're still meeting.
They're probably got a free roll going.
I think 12 feet is 12 or 14 feet is probably reasonable. I think how tall is you planning to have your panels?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I'm just asking.
No,
I'm
Well, then you
asking,
can't talk.
I'm asking so that I can have some information.
I say something?
No, thank you. I'm asking specifically.
Typically, you would see a single height portrait panel, definitely no more than 12 feet, depending on, how high it would be off the grade. A double high portrait would be like 2 panels stacked on top of each other, which use less piles. Those at max tilt, you'd be probably looking at 16, 17 feet. We are planning to do single high, so 12 would be the absolute tallest and likely shorter that we plan on going here. But again, you're writing this for any project, obviously.
Right. Now, the reason I asked him, ladies and gentlemen, is because what he just said is that, okay, they have single panels and then they have double panels. And the double panels are much higher than a single panel. And now that, we may not have known that before that, so now we know.
But when I
Now-
talked to him about town, he said 8 foot high was the max. That's the same Apex people. That I talked to.
So they don't need it. This is our. They'll have
The,
it.
well, the maximum height that was proposed is 12 feet. Is what was proposed.
There's
And,
more proposals than they 12 foot. isn't
well, somebody said 8 foot off the ground, maximum height of 12 feet. And so maximum height, and in our ordinance, we have a maximum height of 20 feet. I agree, 20 feet is excessive. And, we want to allow double stack panels? I don't think so. No, that's my personal opinion. But 12 feet would be a reasonable height. Any comments?
Do we want to put specific language in there that would prohibit double stack panels in the future?
The technology may change. A height is probably good enough.
From what, the ground, or from what the center?
It's from the ground.
I'm trying to set on it.
No, as our ordinance reads now, it currently says shall not exceed 20 feet as measured from the natural grade at the base of improvements.
Mhm.
I read that from the dirt.
Yes. So right now they could put a double stack in there. And I'm basically agreeing with that, a 12-foot max, which would prohibit that, would be reasonable, gives them what they want. I mean, they still can have their solar panel.
Why are we giving it to them?
And it's already foreclosed, isn't it?
And so what's the, I think that 12 feet is a reasonable number, more reasonable than 20 feet. Now, again,
I think we need to seek information from the people who do solar.
mhm. Okay.
What would an average height for most systems be? Apex aren't the only guys out there.
Right.
And there's many different makers of solar panels. John,
Yes,
would you please excuse me for a minute?
sure. Go
I
ahead.
have a minute. Okay, please excuse me.
See that right, John?
I don't know.
John, can you get copies of this that you guys have in paper?
No, I did not make additional copies. Basically, like I said.
Well, he's got one.
Excuse, I'm sorry, we do have it on the website. It is on the township website. If you go to the planning commission agenda for March, this document is available, is on there. I'm sorry. So if whoever downloaded the agenda for this meeting would have this total page.
I do have one extra copy.
I was looking and I couldn't find it, but I'm looking at my little phone.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
There's an awkward pause.
Sure.
Kevin, did we ever get the master plan on the website? I lost internet and I can't.
No, he doesn't, he did not, I did not do it.
Oh,
I forgot to. say.
oh, okay,
we
'cause I was
just-
like, I was only searching just now, trust me.
We just talked
Oh,
about
okay.
that.
Okay. I probably not said I can dial that.
Somebody still.
I don't know where this.
The agenda is, this stuff was with it. And I couldn't see it soon, but he didn't ask before he said that. I'll make sure I get, I'll put it on as soon as we're done.
Get it on.
Okay, so.
Make sure you're.
We solved it all early.
No, you're good. We just want to make sure you're all right.
Yeah, I got issues, you know?
So, another one on page 6 is required 7-foot fences. And delete the barbed wire option, and that's what they do. Yes. Excuse me. If you have conversations, you can take them outside in the conversational area. So, in page 6 is under screening and security, requires 7-foot fences, delete barbed wire option. I agree. The 7-foot fence should be the preferred one, and that is consistent with electrical fencing. I mean, fencing guidelines.
Nobody recall, not to elaborate, because I totally forgot that part, but didn't, when we originally discussed this, and I looked through my notes and I can't find it, that there's a federal requirement, and I'm just wondering, I know we went above and beyond the federal requirement, but I think in the essence of consistency or things, that it would be, I think it brings up the sophistication of the ordinance in that if it references the federal requirements and then says by going above, or we wouldn't say that commentary, that they would comply by, excuse me, everyone, I'm gonna ask Brian a question. What is the regulatory body, Brian?
It's like the National Electrical Code has two options.
Okay.
Either it has to be either 7-foot or 6-foot with the 3 strands of barbed wire. That's what the two different options. are. Has to be one or the other.
Okay.
Right.
So I just wonder, just because as that statute may or may not evolve, and then it also, I think it gives a clear message to the community that those other ordinances were evaluated, and if there was an attempt to go beyond that, so.
Well, what we could, I guess what we could do is reference the National Electrical Code for fences, and then say that we can add use of razor or barbed wire or electrified fences is not allowed. Period.
Yeah.
That would provide assurances. Okay. Under still under screening and security, There is proposals, evergreen trees, 6-foot minimum height instead of 4 foot. Replace dead material within 90 days instead of 1 year. Requires 7-foot evergreens, not native trees with seasonal leaves.
We have any language currently that there's some kind of assurance in there? Some kind of guarantee on that 90 days and repercussions if there's not?
Yes, well, as part of the site plan process and the special use approval process and contract, the site plan becomes a contract because we have requirements in the site plan for the landowner, the developer, as well as in the special use approval. Those requirements basically spell out, besides they embellish or they provide additional information or requirements over the ordinance. And that one of the things is that they don't follow the ordinance or the requirements from that they agree to, then they can be shut down.
Okay, I've taken the position that we should put as much of this in the ordinance as possible. I've sat through special approval meetings, I've sat through a lot of site plan meetings at this table. And I just, the size and scope of this, I'd feel more comfortable if it was in the ordinance itself. Who knows who's gonna be on this commission? in
Well,
5 or
on
10
the
years.
next page, number 4, of just what I just, the evergreen part is number 2. On the next page, on number 4, it says failing to install or continuously maintain required vegetative buffer shall constitute a violation of this ordinance, and any special approval use may be subject to revocation.
So does that read that if they're not holding up their end of the bargain, we can shut it down? I mean, that we can, and now this is 5 years after it's built and up and running. Yeah, we can be like, all right, shut it down.
It'd be all new people coming and going and nobody will, I think it should be in there. Because the next group of people that comes in there after us might not know that.
But that's in there right now.
Yeah.
That's part of the ordinance right now. Is that it? They don't
But
make.
the penalty, what, it says they got to, we didn't say nothing about shutting them down.
It does.
Any special use, any special approval use may be subject to revocation. If you revoke the special use approval, they're shut down. They have to cease.
I don't
Well,
see
we
this
have
township
the
doing
authority
that.
to shut down.
Yes.
We don't even have a blank enforcer, so we can enforce something.
It would be a court suit to do
Yeah, it
that.
would have to be a
Of
court.
course.
We can't just tell them to turn it off and they're gonna do it.
Can we put a fine in there if they don't?
That's, yeah.
The fine is written into the current ordinance, isn't it? Or in the overall ordinance, if there is a violation.
Specifically, I do not, we don't have a specific fine for.
Not to branch off here, but didn't we have something? Right, so much lately, where there is an escrow account or
Yes.
some sort that if we have to go after them for breaking the rules, they're the ones paying for it.
Yes, it is. We do have that.
But isn't it too light? It's only like $15,000 and that's like 2 days.
The escrow account would be whatever is deemed appropriate at the time that we set it up. Our experts and lawyers set it up.
What about if it was kind of what we talked about at the last meeting, where we work into the ordinance, we have, our minimal or maximum requirements for screening buffers, et cetera.
Mhm.
And then require that that a solar company would have to work to acquire the trees through the Monroe County Conservation. I did confirm that they can do that. Acquire the trees through a county board, through the conservation district. And then the conservation, they would have to enter into an agreement, some kind of, I'm throwing this out there, a 30-year agreement with the conservation district to maintain and
In other words, have
evaluate.
a third party.
Yeah, to this point here.
Right.
Either a third party validator that is, knows local grasses, knows
Yes.
what's going on, and then it also goes to that community benefit that it is hopefully benefiting from the conservation district.
Yes. That's something that we can put in there.
Wasn't, if you look on page 7, I think there's something that refers to that.
Mhm. All plant materials shall be installed, it's number 3. Between March 15th and November 15th, if the applicant is unable to plant during the installation period, the applicant will provide the township with a letter of credit, surety, or corporate guarantee for the amount equal to 1.5 times the cost of planting deficiencies that the township shall hold until the next planting season. After all plantings have occurred, the township shall return the financial guarantee. A third-party arborist must inspect the trees and shrubs on site to verify health of the plants prior to planting and after all trees and shrubs are planted. Test the soils prior to planting trees and shrubs to determine successful growth. Now this, what I'm reading, this paragraph is a suggestion. So it's not part of the ordinance. Test the soils prior to planting trees and shrubs to determine successful growth. Modify soils or import material as necessary to guarantee successful planting and shrubs and growth. So that's something that is, I think, very reasonable to put in there. Something that, to that effect. And to your suggestion about the soil conservation thing, that's something that we could also make a recommendation that they use them or somebody equivalent. And in order to, in fact, that's what I alluded to in terms of third-party arborist. So you have,
That draft language.
no, do you have the actual name of the,
Monroe Conservation District.
right, that's it.
That's the name of it. Yeah. I have 150 trees planted in my yard that they can use. So I'm like, Nick, I didn't put them out there. I got over. It came in little and now.
So.
Yes,
you did
so I
the-
agree. I think that's something that we should have in there, and that will provide, some experts to work with them to, make sure that it meets the intent of everybody. And like I said, there's language here that says that if they don't do it, they pay for it, and you can shut them down if you have to. Now, we have we talk about evergreen trees that are planted at a minimum of 4 feet in the ordinance, shrubs of 2 feet in height. Evergreen tree shall be spaced no more than 15 feet. Now, there is I don't know this for sure, but I've been told that, taller the trees, the more likely that they have difficulty being transplanted. I'm not sure that's true or not. That's where arborists will come in. Now, 4-foot trees, granted, are not going to, it's going to take time for them to hit 8 feet or whatever.
Foot a year.
How?
About a foot a year.
Foot a year? Okay, so in 4 years, it'd be 8 feet, you know.
Wow.
We're gonna put any requirements in there that should prohibit the project, whoever's in charge of the project from trimming those trees. Height wise.
Well, that would be part of the maintenance program. That would be developed. Part of this, in here, it says that we'll have a maintenance program for the trees, we need for the trees and shrubs, and that would be developed in conjunction with the arborist.
Okay, well, is that gonna be part of a contractual obligation between the project managers and the township? I don't want to plant 4-foot trees and then have them pruned every year at 4 feet.
Right.
But there's no, there's nothing in here that prohibits that. I mean, tree grows gets too tall, it's gonna block some sun.
I doubt if it blocked any sunlight, so, but anyway, that's beside that. But anyway.
I can show you some trees I planted that are.
Well, we can easily.
I mean, it's more, I don't need them to be 30 feet. I mean, I'd like to see them get well above whatever fence we require.
Yeah.
And perhaps the panels themselves. I mean, if you could, I mean, the fence is 7 feet, these panels, you know,
I
we go down.
like these trees to be more than 12 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want, again, if we don't, I feel like if we don't cross our T's and dot our I's.
Okay, no, I'm not disagreeing with
No,
you.
I know, you're an engineer. I know.
But,
I mean, I'm not ready to start writing language tonight, but it's something that I think,
well, I think what we, a very valid point is that, something to the fact that, trees should not be trimmed below 12 feet or something like that.
At least, yeah.
The only thing I see with that is that if there's disease or other types of things, so I don't.
No, I supposed to be replaced.
Yeah, all right, I just, or if something gets hit by lightning and then, I don't. I get what you're saying, I'm just trying to not put, to tie their hands when they can't get a tree down or something.
Well, no, if part of the maintenance program is for them to, remove dead trees, damaged trees, and replace them. But I would imagine that, we can easily put in here something that says that they're, should not be trimmed below 12 feet. Or some number like that. Okay, on page 7, under noise, there's a suggestion that noise should not exceed 25 to 30 decibels. or limit noise to 40 decibels at residence lot line. Right now, we have 65 decibels. As measured at the exterior property boundary or the existing road right of way. Read those 65 is probably kind of close. Now, 25 to 35 is, basically a whisper. And I think, like I said, 65 is rather loud. I would, one suggestion is 55 decibels, but I guess the thing is, 55 would be more reasonable. It's 42, unreasonable. It's, I guess we'd have to just, figure that out.
Yeah, reasonable, we got what's reasonable for the township person has to live next to it.
Right.
Not for what this is reasonable, but reasonable for the average person that lives in the township, that would have to have that next to them. We should find out what would be tolerable.
I agree.
Or what would be normal?
What would be normal?
Yeah, normal, that's good.
And these are measured at the at the lot line.
Right.
And
I mean, somebody who lives next to the expressway has a higher normal noise level than somebody who just lives out in the middle, surrounded by farm fields.
Exactly. And that's where we will, that's something that I think we need to probably talk to an expert.
I think so.
That one right back there. Sorry. Retired. Retired.
And maybe we'll have to go out and stand out in the fields one night.
Well, obviously, we'll have to average it out.
Well, you can either do average or you can do max.
Yeah, probably, right. Well, we can figure it out. That's all right.
Why don't we, can we add this to the list of checking with the planner or
Yes.
do them on it? I think we discussed this before and 65 was like the average home or something, if I recall. We had a whole chart before.
I'm pulling up some right now.
Yeah, well, it was like 65 was like something like a leaf blower.
A leaf blower.
The leaf blower was
More like
Yeah.
90.
It's not just the volume or the decibels, it's what you're listening to. I mean, a wrestling leads or bird chirp, I think most people would agree is enjoyable. But the freeway is one I can hear from my house, and it's not nearly as enjoyable as other noise. And there's a lot of.
Right.
That's why we bought houses in the township.
Okay. Well, we will, like I said, I think need to get some expert advice on that. Because whatever number we pick, like Matt said, depends on what kind of noise it is. And the only noise that this project is going to make is from the inverters. Solar panels don't make any noise.
Don't they move?
And
They move.
the inverters are the main noise source. Unless you happen to get a squeaky hinge or whatever as they rotate. Since it's 9 o'clock, one of these briefly discuss setbacks.
I don't think this is.
I don't think we're gonna. solve-
John, this is,
What? Okay.
this is not unenjoyable. I mean, this is actually stimulating. Once we figure it out, but
Do you think we should call it evening?
no, I feel like everything we come to, we're kind of putting a little asterisk and saying, well, let's talk to Sarah, let's talk to the lawyer, let's talk to, you know, or a sound engineer. You know, I love the idea of a workshop, bringing in whatever experts we can get our hands on, like, I think at least I have found that what constitutes an expert or a study varies greatly depending on where you're coming from. I think we have a good history with Sarah Mills. I don't know who else we can bring in. I'm prepared to hear what this commission has to say about setbacks. I just wonder if it's
Premature.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Can we add it to the list of either Sarah or, I know Sarah evaluated our setbacks before, and they were, but I think she just evaluated from the perspective of, I'm trying to remember now, but maybe just get an updated evaluation of the setbacks. And possibly ask the planner for comparisons to other ordinances, other specific solar ordinances. Yeah. I mean, I can just, some of these seem, at the time when we did the ordinance, it seemed adequate, but, I think that looking at other site plans of or solar ordinance or solar proposals online, I think they could be a little farther.
Going to these last two meetings that I reported on last month, it's not just feet, there's other more creative ways of utilizing setbacks.
Right.
Where property owners have some variables and options. It's something we might want to discuss in the commission as well.
Yes. Yeah, as well as whether they're participating owner or non-participating neighbor. Yeah. So, whether what the setbacks should be, and whether it's from the general road right away or from a homestead. And the one of the things is that besides the setback, you'll have the tree line, you'll have the fence line.
But those are debatable. I mean, are we talking, like, when we talk about fencing, and we haven't discussed burning, but the trees or whatever, is that just going, are we going out just off of residence houses? Are we going off from any adjoining property line? Are we going off of, because there's been discussion about vacant land. Okay, and there's been discussion about land that has a residence on it. How close that residence is to the property line. I think there's a lot of things that need to really be ironed out.
I agree. And, the setbacks from the general property line, does not have, it can be less than what it is from the residence. or from, like I said.
And again, I spoke to at least one person who has vacant land. And I don't even know if they're aware of whether or not, because there's no been formal plan announced, but whether or not they're like, well, you know, I was gonna give that to my kids to build a house on. And if we have setbacks that treat it as vacant land, that disenfranchises that property owner who currently has vacant land from, you know, can't move the setback back after the house. So
It's something we can discuss. Yeah, you know. For the ordinance, we would have to do is establish some kind of criteria for what the setbacks are. And then, you know, like in a situation like what you're talking about, then that I would anticipate would be something that would be addressed in the site plan. And negotiated, you know, additional setback, because that setback is a minimum. And in a situation like what you're talking about, if it was relatively clear that that's potential in the future, then maybe that local area setbacks can be expanded as part of the site plan agreement.
well, and again, I'm just gonna say, I don't like the site plan to protect us in that regard. I mean, we haven't, to my original point this evening, that if theoretically that entire dark green area is open for this, there could be some vacant land or some houses on the northwest corner of this township that, you know, what we're coming up with now might be the rules that they have to go by in the future if something comes up anywhere. I'm not talking about just, you know, and that would be specific to the site plan, well, this guy or this gal, you know, this and that, but I'd rather see it written down. You know,
That's right.
so, and again, if we can come up with something in our future discussions, I would like to pursue that.
And we also have to realize, okay, what is the purpose for the setback? Is, you know, just to move the solar panels far enough away that you don't see them? That's not going to happen.
No, but I, you know, going back to that discussion about protecting property values, I mean, if there's nothing that we can write in there to protect property values, I believe setbacks are one way that we can address that to some degree.
Right, but, you know, go to excessively large setbacks, you know, that the land that is basically not usable.
I don't know, I mean, excessive is a very subjective word, and I do see, we've had this conversation before, and I do agree with you. Go crazy setbacks, well, now we have to enroll more acres to account for that.
So, yeah, that's, I think what we need to do is, as they say, put a pin in this, and do we want to have a workshop sometime later this month or early April?
Which just us again, or?
Well, it'd be a workshop meeting with Sarah.
If she's available, yeah, I mean, I think our next discussion, our workshop has to be with somebody or a number of people. And it might be, you know, I don't know that it's gonna be worth, I'd like to talk to 10 different professionals. But having 10 at once is probably gonna be a waste of their time.
Right. Well, I think it is, if we can get her to come at some convenient time. Because like I said, apparently the second Tuesday, if not other Tuesdays she has conflicts. You know, and this is obviously going to take longer than any of us are anticipating.
I would suggest that Sarah's probably gonna say, can you, you just seem to be most familiar with her, can you remind this commission again who she is and what she does?
So Sarah's faculty at University of Michigan she was original, I think she has a dual appointment at the Ford School, which is the public policy school, and then it's now called C's, and I should know this, but it's School of Environmental EAS, whatever. And she has a grant from the state of Michigan to work with local, I think she has an updated, I think it's updated grant to work with local townships on evaluating their plans. She's done a lot of work in the Thumb and in Michigan and some other places, but she works really closely with Michigan State. They do a lot of joint research together, as well as Ohio State. And I think they've been she's very aware of some major solar projects that are going on in Indiana. Well, she's very aware of, I think it's her job to be aware, so. And she really, I think that she really took it from a variety of all kinds of different levels. I mean, that's my opinion. And, provided tried to provide as unbiased of an evaluation as possible. She also, yeah, I think it's the state of Michigan. I think it may be through Treasury, but it's, she works, I think, for Governor's group. No, she doesn't know. No, she originally got the grant, previous administration, because she's had this for a while, and I know it was debatable whether it was going to get renewed when she came here 2 years ago. So she didn't know if she was whether the new administration was gonna renew it. So no, she works for the University of Michigan.
Okay, I'll see if I can talk to her and see how flexible she is or where we can.
And we could also do a Zoom where we record it and people could join in. And even ask, and do it as a webinar, so people can't just, you can mute everybody. Well, yeah, you could do that too, but it could be a webinar where people could just write their comments, and then that way it's, I don't know, some guys have to come up for me
That you'll have to talk to Kevin about.
Yeah, but I mean, in order to provide flexibility, and then also during the day, if people, something like that.
Well, let me see what I can find out from her when she's available, and then I'll get back with you guys to see if we can set up some kind of meeting workshop and start to work through this some more. How's that? Have to agree about everybody? I think the time is getting late, and so I'd like to offer, if anybody would like to make any comments, public comment again, time? Yes, sir.
I'd like to know who's paying the bill for the planner and all the professionals. Is that the township or is that the applicant?
The township will pay for the planner and anybody else that we bring in until the site plan has been submitted, until the Apex submits their site plan. Once they've submitted their site plan application, then all the expenses are paid by them.
One other thing I have is this house value thing. Like, pay close attention. You go to the Hendershot Road up between Ridge and Tecumseh. One of the gentlemen's houses that just put it up for sale because of solar being around his house. We'll talk to him and see how much money he's gonna lose on that house when he sells it. He's got it up for sale right now because of this.
Okay.
And the other thing is, who authorized Apex to get a copy of all the emails that we sent to you guys?
They requested emails. I don't know about emails, because I They did have a freedom of information request for the proposed amendments that I read through at the last meeting. And so I made a copy of those amendments that was, sent to me because of the freedom of information. That's how they got them. And so I had no, that was part of a public record. Yes, sure.
I was just wondering, you said Sarah Mills, how about Kevin Morris, can he be in this group? I'd like the Mary back there to be in this group. There are people with a lot of knowledge. How many applications have you received for a planner?
I don't know, that's not part of
Okay, I'm just
my.
asking. It's on, so we do have professionals here. They're in the back row right here. They're looking through it right now, so I think we need to really talk to Augusta and make sure that they've done the lawyer, right? They've done the planner, they've done all this. So we need to really think about this. And like I said, I think we need to shut it down, point blank, because I think it's way over our heads right now. So that's all I have to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sally Strack. So, couple things. One, this is our map. I would like to see another map that size next to it that shows the properties that they're considering so that you can see what our future may look like if we go down that route. It would be, I know that there's a map, I think Sharon took a picture of a map over by Bill's desk, Kevin's desk, that I would like to see what's the plan for this? How is this landscape gonna change from Ag 1? Number 2, I mean, I would like it to be right next to it, so we can actually see that and see what are we taking on? A visual is very, that looks beautiful. What's coming down the pike isn't. 2, has this planning commission done any field trips to go look at? Can that be something, we get a Greyhound bus and we all go for a ride on Saturday? I don't know, but I would like to see something, good, bad, compare it all. And lastly, when I looked at the map that Sharon had, where my property's at, I'm gonna have it, I'm out, I have no neighbors, very few, one, I don't, can't hear them. Welch Road is gonna be all field, the solar panel, and then the field behind me. And when you talk about lighting, I don't have a yard light, I don't want a yard light. What are the lights in these, in the solar field? Are my neighbor, am I gonna go sit on my back porch and be looking at the football field? I don't want that. So I would also like to see solar field and the lighting. What's it look like at night? We don't have any pictures in here. There's no video. If somebody could actually provide that, because I don't know what I'm looking at, but I live out in the country. I don't have a yard light. I want to sit on my back porch. I like to hear the frogs. I don't want to hear 65 decibels of something moving. I think we can plant taller than 4-foot trees. We transplanted 6-foot trees, 150 of them, 4 people in one day. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I get green energy. I get people have a right to do with their property what they want. But I think that we're all neighbors and I'd like to live cohesively. And whatever the future holds, you're all gonna be gone, we're all gonna be gone eventually, but it's gonna be left behind. He does demolition, all these windmills, they put them up, they quit working, they walk away. The community is left to take them down.
they don't repair the windmills, they leave them once they quit working. What happened? I mean, I really,
We don't know.
we don't know, and I just really want you to be thoughtful. You're my neighbor, I'm your neighbor. And I want to live here cohesively, but I really want to see on that map, what's it gonna look like?
Unfortunately, at this
I
time.
don't, I know it's unfortunate, I just.
No,
want-
I just wanted to let you know that at this time, we don't know what, unless Apex would give us a map or whatever of their, which they have not. And until the official information they will give us, it will be when they have their site plan application. At that time,
Then-
all of that information, like which properties are involved, the lighting and everything else would be established. They would declare what they're going to be doing. At this time, they have maps in their office, and which are, from what they've told me, there's more property than they're going to use. But in any case, but it's not something that,
I know it's
that we
potential,
can.
I know it's under whatever.
Sally,
What is
I
their
totally
thought?
agree with you. I think we should do it, and I think at some, the issue I think will just be until we get the site, until I think you're totally agree, and I would like it too, so.
And we have
It's
a copy
on
of
here.
that map that Phil's got.
I don't know where
I
that
think
came
it's
from.
just
I took a picture of it up at their office and then I
It's too
printed
little
it.
for me to read, I have progressive.
It's at their
lenses.
office.
No, I mean, I got it hanging up. I'll bring it over here if you want.
That'd be great, or, yeah, I would like, I want it to hang next to that.
Yeah, but the
What
thing
are we
is,
parking?
that's just land that they optioned.
Which
It's
is,
not what they,
which is fine, we just wanna see what the.
I
proposed-
understand, but what you gotta
just
keep
wanna
in mind is
see.
for the ordinance, like they said, you wanna protect it for everything, not just Apex. If Apex walks away, somebody else could come in with an even bigger thing. In ordinance, you wanna protect it from that. So that's. So I guess, I'm not understanding, I guess it doesn't really matter the size. I understand just to see it, but.
But no, I agree with you that we need to
But it
protect it
needs
where it
to-
doesn't.
It needs to be
incorporate
regardless
all-
of it's them, because they haven't,
Correct.
if they
Yes.
walked away, somebody else could.
Yes,
But this is a, yes.
At this
But
time,
it's not all green right now, it could
at this
change.
time, as far as the planning commission is concerned, it's, the ordinance says it's allowed in ag 1. And, so at this point, that's all we can go by. And, whatever, map that they would show us or whatever is at, for the writing of the ordinance is irrelevant. Whether it's 5 acres or 500 acres. So, but in any case, but yes, like I said, once they give us a site plan application, then we'll know all the details that they're proposing.
Nice to know who they're talking to, what land is potentially being.
We will know that,
It's
right now, that's,
It's in the office.
no, I'm sorry, but right now, that's their proprietary information.
It's public,
It's
public, just like they give emails.
Well,
It's not public.
Yes, it is. It's out at the Azalea Solar.
It's
Yeah,
not
that's
public,
in their
it's-
office.
we're entitled to it. That's information that they've chosen to share.
whatever.
Okay, so they're sharing it.
No, they're not. They haven't shared it with us.
Will
Well,
you share it, Mr.
you're sharing
Apex?
it in an open.
Yeah, he said he'll share it, so.
Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, that's
There
beside,
it
that's
is.
beside,
He's sharing
okay,
it.
okay. So,
Thank you. I'm
thank
done.
you. Bob, you have a comment to? Catch you up, okay.
Right here.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's Sharon.
Yes.
What is the process for, what was the word that you used? Let's just stop it right now. What is the process for stopping it? And I'm just playing like, trying to understand, like, for instance, you're a commission, you're writing ordinances to corral what's potentially gonna happen. So you're, as a commission, are not gonna say yay or nay. So the next step, after you've written and defined the limits, the boundaries of everything, would the next step to stopping this be when it goes to the site plan?
Okay, I know where you're going with this. Okay, what she's asking is, coming from Sharon said, shut it down. Okay. We create ordinances, we amend ordinances, and that is our function. And if we would say, okay, we don't want to do anything, we don't have to do anything. We could stop and say, we're not going to amend this at all. We just want to leave it out. That's what you just, is it shut down? No more amendments.
Stringent, we want a very concrete,
And,
stringent. solar.
but,
Yes, make them want to go away.
excuse me, but all of us here agree that there are improvements to this ordinance, and we want to make them. Now, if you wanted to shut it down, where, basically tell us, Apex to go pound sand, okay?
Yeah.
You talk to the township board, they have the authority to say moratorium for 5 years. If they wanted to,
They could rescind it too.
and
Rescind the ordinance is what they could do.
if they rescinded the ordinance, we'd be wide open for whatever Apex wanted to do. The ordinance is to provide a framework of protection and requirements for them to behave. Without an ordinance, they don't have to behave. Except in court.
It's as simple as that.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so, yes,
Sorry, so I'm sorry, I didn't catch you.
Tracy.
Tracy, sorry.
But I mean, I
So-
guess my question is
Hold on,
that-
real quick, let me
Yeah.
back up. So I think we need to clarify something that I don't want you to walk away with. We do vote on it. So we do vote to move it for recommendation to the board. So I don't want you to walk
The
away.
ordinance.
Yes.
Right,
on
but then, so
ordinance.
then the next step after, okay, so you write your ordinances, you protect the township, you vote to recommend it to go to the board, so then it goes to the board, and then they vote to accept it.
So we can do one of two things. We can vote not to recommend it.
Right.
Or we can vote to not recommend any of these things. We can do a variety of different things. Or we can, and then the board can do the exact same thing. They can decide to reject all of our changes because the ordinance is already in place. So it would be an amended ordinance that they would accept or reject. They also would have the opportunity to make amendments at the board level to make additional changes themselves.
Okay, and at what point then does if the board says, okay, we're accepting all of these ordinances, we think they sound good, then Apex can make a site plan.
So because, sorry.
Yeah, what's the next?
Okay. If generally, by the time that the ordinance amendments go to the township board, generally, it's usually approved, okay?
By the board.
By the board, and because these changes make things stronger, okay? Now, by them accepting the ordinance amendments does not approve the project.
Okay.
Okay, that's just, it just sets up the ordinance, that zoning ordinance that Apex has to abide by. Now, then, the township board has to approve a special use permit for them to be able to operate, to be able to start.
And
And
that special use permit has been, they applied.
they haven't applied for that,
But
that's.
but in the future, they will.
They will apply, they'll have a site plan application, which basically says, so this is how we're gonna do everything. And then they have, and at the same time, they'll have a special use approval, which is, like I said, a contract between the township and that they'll apply for, so that they can say, hey, we want to be able to start the process and run this project. And the township board has the ability to basically say, no,
We don't like your site plan.
we don't like your site plan, we don't like your project, we don't like the special use, they can say no just because they don't like them.
Okay, so there's
Right.
multiple steps.
Right.
So everybody in this room, just so that I understand, there's multiple steps that this project can get rejected.
Yes,
So it's not just,
but the rejection comes at the township board level. not-
right,
Not
so
this
it's,
level.
so it's not here at the commission planning that we should, as township members, should be saying, rejected, rejected. We should be saying, for the most practicality, let's, like, I think this gentleman over here said, let's strengthen the crap out of these ordinances so that there's no, to the best of our ability, because any lawyer, I mean, it's like prenups are worth the paper they're written on. But at least we can write them,
Correct.
these ordinances strong enough so that we can hopefully avoid, you know, any problems, and the people of the township can get the best that they want, and still with the idea that it could still be rejected.
Correct. Okay, so. Yes, ma'am.
There were a couple things that I wanted to touch on. The first thing I wanted to say though was, I was very pleased with how this meeting went. You, ma'am, you brought up a lot of really good points, and the gentleman at the end, I was very, very pleased, and I've not seen that from our planning commission in London Township. I really wish that we had people like you who go that extra mile, who put that much thought and work into the job. Like I said, it's a thankless job, you get paid peanuts for it. But I was very, very happy to see how much thought was put into everything. The first thing I wanted to say, and I really hate to burst some bubbles in the audience, regarding the PA 116 land. Yes, they can put it, you guys can put it in the ordinance all you want. However, and I do encourage you to speak with the attorney. However, state law trumps local ordinances. And if somebody wanted to challenge it, they could sue the township, and then you're opening yourself up to spending thousands of dollars when that person will win. We've had this conversation with our attorney in London Township in previous years regarding more stringent requirements in our local ordinances compared to the law. And it says
It's not a
the same thing.
state law, it's just the director of the Department of Agriculture that issued a statement saying it could be utilized, it's not a state. law.
Okay, well, my apologies.
Yeah, no, just for
If-
clarification, it's all online.
If it does get to that point though, then it will trump.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that.
I don't apologize, I just like, no, it's not a statute.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Jen. Another thing was, regarding the trees. Don't assume that it's just going to fall under maintenance or anything. Like many have said, spell everything out. At literally everything, because people will come in, and not just them, but other people down the line, they can come in and they will twist it and turn it to their advantage the best that they can. So most definitely spell out everything that you want to see in the ordinance, because I've seen it in my own township. Things were not spelled out and they used it to their advantage. And when you do, well, if you do get to the point where you get a special, that site plan in front of you, you can put reasonable restrictions beyond what your ordinance states. So keep that in mind as well. As long as they are reasonable restrictions, it's not overbearing, it's not going to above and beyond, they should want to work with you. They should want to be good neighbors. Thank you.
Yes,
I'd like to say you're fortunate down here to have a moratorium, so you have some time to amend this solar ordinance. We're well past that over there. It's made clear that there's nobody has applied for anything. That's why it's not about denying or approving anything. Also fortunate to have thoughtful residents step up and represent the township for little pay hardly and many headaches. And most of the time in most townships, there's vacancies for people to step up and do the job. Everyone could be a better part of that. You know, myself, I went down the first time I was in our township was just a solar thing. I'm more involved now. Unfortunately, people and humans in general will tend to think, and I've seen it over and over at these meetings, that you up there on the board have something to gain from the solar company, that you have had some influence. I don't believe that was the case here or in any of the ones that I've been to, but it's just human nature to think, oh, you know, how'd they get to you? The planning commission members were appointed by the township supervisor. They're appointed, he picks who goes there. Anybody pretty much, the township, the board of trustees are elected positions. The township supervisors one. That's another way to be involved, is by maximize your impact and get involved and vote and apply for positions. You can have a say up here. They can listen to us, but those are the ones that really get to vote. Township attorneys and planners are valuable, and they have professional and helpful advice, but it's just that, it's advice from them. And they're not like many lawyers will speak, like it's the word of God, and it not necessarily is. But they don't necessarily even, and more than likely don't live in this area. But they're advisors and they're valuable advisors. And we should have some down here. Our township planner recommended long ago not to have a large scale ordinance. Not at the time the planning commission didn't listen to what that person had to say. It turns out that probably would have been good advice. Township attorneys are helpful, but they tend to think about trying to avoid courts. You're talking about maybe setting some new precedences or changing things, which only happen when there's court cases. They're not, you can't, just because it's not been that way in the past, isn't necessarily the way it's gonna be in the future. Things change. That's how things change. The township, our township's been served after they were denied. No, we denied them, we got served by the company. Guess what? They got all kinds of attorneys, and we have an attorney, but it is costing us money up there. And then it has to, we come down to, what is the cost benefit? Really, for us, that maybe are much in a different position in this township. It's really a thought. How far are we willing to take this? Those guys, and you got to benefit, see, well, how far are they willing to go? They're obviously going to show up here soon with an attorney. I'm surprised that they don't have one already. Master plan and the resident survey really are important to determine what the people want, and a lot of things should be looked back at those two things. In addition, one thing we have there is a development agreement. So when they go to install and do all this stuff, there's a spelled out agreement that goes beyond what just the two processes that you're doing down here. They propose some kind of limit on growth and expansion is a good idea. You talked about setbacks being expanded. One of the benefits of the setbacks being expanded for non-participating people is that it makes the solar company have to get out and try to get the people to participate, not just deal with the large landowners. Now they got to go outside and have a 500-foot setback. That is wasted space for them, and it's costing them, but it makes them some incentive to go and deal with the person that should be fairly compensated, or at least considered. Well, and not necessarily everybody doesn't want a 500-foot setback. They would be happy with some negotiation if the solar company actually sat down and talked to them in a way that was respectful and considerate. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. there's, York Township up there, which I was in, been to many of these, they started out right from the beginning with one of the better ordinances that I've seen. Almost every one is a copy of the one that you got, almost a photocopy. Theirs had many more additions and subtractions on it, and they actually approved the other portion of it, so they actually went through and have approved their solar, part of the solar, which is reliant on this other one that was denied, which is why we're not really gonna hear. But one thing you'll see in there, I remember, is they define things. What is a tree? What is evergreen? What is screening? It was down to the nitty gritty. And so I know this is taking a lot of your time. I think that some of it could be well spent seeing what somebody else has done instead of having to let's sit down and talk about it. It's gonna be a 6'3" or 5 foot. They went through all that painstaking stuff. I don't know, it seems to me it would be helpful to go up there. And I just point out that the revoking the special use permit for DTE, like you already know, is unique. It's not just flipping a switch. Oh, you can't be there anymore. Probably be more practical and timely if they had some fines. You don't do this, you're gonna be fined. That tends to get more results than having to go to court. Because again, it's gonna be going to court with them to have them plant the trees. You're gonna have to take a lawyer, they're gonna have to take a lawyer, it's gonna be months down the line, when it may be better off saying, look, you don't do this, you're gonna get slapped with some kind of fine. They're in the money, making money and losing money is not what they want to do. I also am, I've read some of these that got really emotional, and it's an emotional subject, and if people have been reserved, and that's nice to see and respected, and you're actually making some thoughtful decisions as a parent. And this is a big subject, and it really comes down to, I think, is this kind of, it's being able to live back at yourself and make that you made the best decision, because it comes down to it's when you guys up there decided this. Nobody's gonna apply here. We're well past that up there, but that you have put a lot of thought in it, and you're happy with your decision. And thanks for your time and listening. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not familiar with Sarah Mills, but it sounds like she's more into environmental policy versus the actual environmental engineering. I would suggest that you get somebody who's familiar with the application of the environmental regulations, and also somebody who's familiar with hydrology, somebody, who can work with the planners, because planners are more focused on, your construction regulations. I would like to suggest somebody from like the Drain Commission, because they're very familiar with, the grades and all the county drains. They're familiar with the hydrology, they're familiar with the soil survey maps. And I think somebody from the Drain Commission would be an excellent choice to invite.
Sorry, when the ordinance, at what point does the Drain Commissioner evaluate? Would they evaluate our site plan?
Yes.
Site plan.
Yes, that's.
I'm not saying that's
a requirement. It's a requirement of the site plan, but as well as, there's no reason why. We also have the ability to request further advice from them. Additional advice.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just was.
A lot of your septic systems have to be built, perch, because they don't meet the perk test. So it would be good to see what type of soils are in this area. There can be different types of soils within a 500-acre parcel. And, look at the characteristics of the soil. Again, look at the grade of the ditches and the local streams. We just saw.
So I don't mean to ask this question in a provocative way. I mean it more just out of curiosity. What are you trying to solve? Or what are you trying to prevent? I'm just curious. Because if you're that,
I see what a flat area this is. I'm from the other side of the state originally. And so we had, lots of hills and then the streams all went down the big streams. Here, it's so flat. I mean, I get some flooding on my property, but I see a lot of my neighbors get a lot of flooding and ponding. And agricultural activities are somewhat exempt from stormwater regulations, but agricultural properties have different hydraulic characteristics. You know, when you put something on there that's going to change that, I'm not gonna gain anything personally from where I live, but I know that the people who are in areas that would be affected by changes.
So I was just trying to clarify what you're.
Right, I mean, and I understand, I didn't take any offense to that.
So like behind my property, there's gonna be about 80 acres to 100 acres that are gonna have this in it. And it always floods there and water sits there for a long time. So if it's not taken care of properly, like she's saying, then my field's gonna be flooded because their field's not draining. And their field runs into my field because I'm lower.
And there's different ways of handling that.
Okay,
You know,
thank you.
retention, detention.
Well, very good. It's 10 to 10, so I think we've probably overstayed our welcome.
I was just gonna, I don't have a long comment, I was just gonna say, Brian O'Shea, Salem Solar.
Hey, excuse me.
I just wanna say, I haven't met.
Brian,
Sorry, go ahead.
Brian, excuse me, you've all had your say. He's allowed to have his say with respect from everybody, whether you like him or not. So,
And I really just want to say, I met everyone here, so I just want to make sure people knew that, you still be funny, but Brian O'Shea from Zillow Solar. I'm happy to hang around after the meeting until Kevin or whoever kicks out if you have other specific questions on the project. There were a couple specific things brought up, like, lighting or the panels lit at night. Fair question, and the answer is no, and that is something that's required in the ordinance. But if people have questions like that, like, hey, is this an issue? I'd be happy to talk a little bit after the meeting. People did ask about the map. We are hoping to have an updated map soon. We're actually doing some site plan reviews with landowners this week. So whatever we're putting out there in public domain is okay with them. We want to make sure that we don't put something out there that's not accurate. And we do plan on hosting a public information meeting. I think it'll likely be in April at this point, where people can actually come, ask questions, review the map, etc. I know that's separate from the ordinance discussion, but it is something we want to do. And then the last thing I'll note is I did enjoy actually reading and providing some feedback on a lot of the different suggestions that came from residents. There were some good suggestions on issues like drainage. That's not actually covered in the ordinance. Makes sense for something to be in there on that. Glare, emergency response plans, change of ownership. There's a lot of those things that are common sense and we see in other communities that just didn't happen to be in this ordinance. So I think there were good suggestions. There are other suggestions we obviously don't agree with. Provided our comments on those, but I do appreciate everyone who took the time. And I'm again happy to stick around for questions or feedback from anyone. Thanks.
thank you. Okay, so I think adjourned?
Works for me.
We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.
Thanks to see you.
Comments or whatever from, I think, once we Kevin and somebody else.